Hi there, everyone. Today I'm going to be reading the letter that Charlie Kirk sent to Netanyahu that has been stirring online right now. Candace Owens has questioned the validity of this letter. Personally, after reading through it, it at the very least sounds like Charlie Kirk. It sounds like the type of stuff that he would say. What was he famous for? For being a social media guy and understanding the need to use social media as a way to push conservative values, adapting with the times. What is the difficulty for young conservatives when it comes to talking to older conservatives? It's in the nature of the conservative values. There's a lot of respect for the elders, right? So Candace Owens doesn't believe it's real. It could be fake, right? But this would be a very elaborate type of fake document because it's mostly focused on social media outreach and an appeal to Netanyahu. And personally, after reading through this, it does not sound like propaganda. Right? Propaganda would imply that Charlie Kirk would not have said some of the things that he said in this document because they're, to me, and other people who are a little bit more analytical and they've been following this Israel stuff for a while. They're quite aware of what Zionist propaganda looks like. And I think Charlie Kirk was in this document trying to subtly suggest a better form of propaganda for the future of Israel, because he can easily see, if you're online and you're watching the debates between Zionists and not even anti-Zionists, there are Zionists who are against the Gaza situation, right? Whether they want to call it the G word or not, that's a whole other thing. But they're at the very least not in favor of what's going on. But for the most part, Zionism is associated with the most far-right nationalistic perspective on all of this stuff. What I'm focusing on is pulling cards on this document, reading through it and pulling cards. Now we're going to pull some cards and we're going to pull them I'm going to pull one for Charlie. Ooh. Trying to get like a one to just fall out because that's been my friend does that, and it's a really cool way to just kind of like, these cards are so big. My Hexen 2.0 deck. Very big cards. Oh, all right. We got too many cards, right? So this is not going to be able to represent Charlie and Netanyahu. Maybe I can look at it and try to decipher, but let's see. We got reverse Six of Swords. Okay, so we got reverse Six of Swords, Six of Cups, 10 of Pentacles, and the reverse Three of Cups. Let's just say that this is how the letter can be interpreted to some degree, the relationship between Netanyahu and Charlie Kirk. If I were to possibly try to look at this as a foreshadowing of what the document's going to entail, I can see the 10 of Cups or the 10 of Pentacles as a way of establishing Charlie Kirk's perspective on social media as a propaganda tool. There's some things to note, like TikTok, right? TikTok was mentioned in this document. Netanyahu is now talking about TikTok. He doesn't understand what TikTok is or how it works, but he's now somewhat aware of how it can be utilized for propaganda. I have a TikTok, and I will continue using it, but now I'm aware of what I'm going to need to do when I create videos on TikTok. I can't talk about Israel. I'm just going to have to avoid that. If I do, I'm going to have to keep it neutral. Reverse Six of Swords is like a resisting change type of thing. Indicates all kinds of things. I've heard various interpretations of the Six of Swords. One thing to note is Martin Heidegger is on this card. And he is a he's dead now, but he was a member of the Nazi Party. But a reverse Nazi, what does that mean? It doesn't mean the opposite of a Nazi, like anti-Nazi or something. It would have to do with like a Nazi that is not a Nazi, right? Not a typical Nazi, not something that you can literally identify as a Nazi. The reason why I am interpreting this card this way, for those who know, right? But there's also the resisting of change, which I do feel we're going to see in this document. Specifically, you'll see. All right, so Six of Cups is a nostalgia card. Something that's interesting about this card, it's about the concept of dream sharing in technology. There's a movie called Until the End of the World, I believe, and it is like a 5-hour movie. And part of the plot is that a scientist is able to create a machine that allows you to see your dreams, and then people just become addicted looking at these machines. They're like, whoa, this is really cool. I can watch my dreams. And then people are just addicted watching their dreams. This is a movie made before TikTok and Instagram, but it's essentially TikTok and Instagram. And it's not your dreams, but it's, you create, for those who like to create things and put them on the internet, sometimes I'll watch a video over and over again and I'll just be like, wow, this is interesting. And then there'll be other times that I just never look at it. Like a lot of this, especially the stuff I post on YouTube, I have a lot of difficulty watching those things because they're so long, and I'm like, I start to really judge myself, so I try to avoid that to some degree. But it's very addicting to watch your own content, to just look at your own pictures, to look at your statuses on Facebook. I personally feel this way. It may not be a universal feeling. The reason why it's interesting is because I do think that this concept of dreams recorded ultrasonically from the brain can be shared online. I think sharing your dreams online is currently what is sort of like keeping us stagnant and also putting us down the consumer hellhole that we're going into. Social media at first seems like a chance for everyone to put themselves out there in a safe setting, but now it's kind of becoming this thing where people becoming complacent with this very like 15 seconds of fame thing, Andy Warhol would have loved. So maybe it's not so bad after all. Reverse Three of Cups is sort of like a tension between the people, your neighbors, your family, all of that stuff. The family here being the right, the conservatives. They're not a kumbaya family right now. They are very at each other's throats behind the scenes. We have people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens who are out there just talking shit, and they're getting a lot of hate. And now Tucker Carlson is speaking at Charlie Kirk's memorial, right? And he's talking about how he was speaking truth to power and he was starting to challenge certain powers, and then they took him out. I watched Glenn Greenwald, and Glenn Greenwald is like, it's crazy that people immediately jump to Israel. It's like, no, it's not, because we all know that's what Tucker Carlson's talking about. I get that Glenn Greenwald has to approach things from this sort of information, objectivist, not objectivist Ayn Rand, but like just objective way of looking at the world. What's the data say? Did Tucker Carlson specifically say Israel? No, but everyone jumped on him about it. But that's because we know that's what he meant. Tucker Carlson is a sneaky guy. When he starts doing his laugh, that's a sneaky laugh. And I like Tucker Carlson. I'm not saying this as a how dare he type of thing. But I'm also the type of person who just doesn't really like to play along with all of that. I like to just be upfront. It's not like anyone's paying attention that it would make a huge difference, right? I'm hoping that the people paying attention to me are on my side and want what's best for Israel. They want what's best for the people in Gaza. So if Tucker Carlson comes out and criticizes Israel as brutally as he does, he's speaking for Talking Points USA or Turning Point USA, and he is out there. Him and Candace Owens look good. They have won me over purely on that. I don't trust them, right? I will not trust them. Tucker Carlson also is for mass deportations. He said like 60 million, which is the number of Hispanics that are in America, whether immigrants or illegals or not. That is a racist number to say. It would be like saying 13% of the population needs to go. It's like, what do you mean 13% of the population needs to go? Just a vague 13%? Well, the 13% that are committing crimes. Wait, what are you talking about? That's what that sounds like. So there's not it's a lot of tension in the conservative movement. They're not a happy family right now. They still hate minorities. Rest assured, they hate the minorities. They hate trans people, and they want those people to suffer. They celebrate when they see suffering of trans people and Hispanic people and immigrants. They are celebrating that. They would be a Three of Cups if the mass deportations were successful. But, the capitalists started to get upset about that. So mass deportations had to get scaled back. So let's just pull a card for Charlie Kirk and Netanyahu. Oh, yes. Well, that is exactly Five of Cups reversed for Netanyahu is perfecto. So look at the Five of Cups as your cup is filled with a bunch of regret, grief, guilt. And then you pour it over and it all dumps out and you don't have to give a single fuck anymore. Charlie Kirk being the Wheel of Fortune would be kind of like poetic right here. In the prime of his life was murdered. And he was murdered while talking about, like he was shot to death while talking about guns. Here's the thing. I'm a pro-gun person. I know all the arguments, and I, to some degree, totally agree. You know, I'm not here to debate that right now. I will be asking the Demon Murmur to help me communicate with Charlie Kirk, possibly. Not tonight. So let's start reading this document. Wheel of Fortune for Charlie Kirk. Reverse Five of Cups for Netanyahu. I think Netanyahu has moved on. I don't think he needs to. He sees it all as totally fine. He does not have a single shred of remorse or grief for Charlie. Now, there are conspiracies that suggest that Mossad is behind the murder of Charlie Kirk. I can't speak to that. I have no idea. I think there are some decent things, and luckily it's the right-wingers who are really focused on this. Where the bullet actually came from isn't where the shooter allegedly was. So how is that possible? It's like, yeah, you know what? Thank you, right-wingers, for going into this and trying to figure out how to blame Israel. So you guys do all that work. I will focus on this stuff, which to me is all objectively real. From the desk of Charlie Kirk. Dear Mr. Prime Minister, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews in the fight to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. Most recently, I am proud to have taken over Ambassador Huckabee's show on TBN, where we continually support Israel and the Jewish people. As Mohammedism spreads into Western societies, it's critical that Jews and Christians stay united in the effort to contain and roll back radical Islam and Sharia law. I regret to report that anti-Israel and anti-Semitic trends are at record levels on social media. These negative sentiments then flow downstream into college campuses and even seep into the conservative MAGA community. My team and I have spent months analyzing these trends and debating ideas that could help you and your country push back against these disturbing developments. Anti-Israel sentiment can undermine American support for Israel. The purpose of this letter is to lay out our concerns and outline potential remedies. Everything written here is from a place of deep love for Israel and the Jewish people. I think it's important to be brutally honest with those you love. In my opinion, Israel is losing the information war and needs a communications intervention. It kind of shows that Charlie Kirk really didn't understand who Netanyahu was as a human being. I look at Netanyahu and Donald Trump and even, Kim Jong-un and Putin. Donald Trump has specifically said that he relates with these guys. So I'm not being slanderous, right? I'm not saying something that Donald Trump wouldn't have said. It's important to be brutally honest with those you love. Do you think an abusive partner would be happy to hear that? Or do you think they would be like, oh, you're going to be brutally honest with me, huh? Oh, all right, let's see what these say. Okay. Reverse world. Ooh. And then Ace of Pentacles. New opportunities. Stagnation. There's a lack of closure here. A reverse Eight of Swords is kind of cool because it is it's all about survival and being able to do things your own way and out in the world. If that was part of the motivation here. Ace of Pentacles is new opportunities. They need a communications intervention for the sake of their survival. The world reverse is lack of communication. Look at the WWW. In the world, the people are able to communicate. But in the reverse, it's like there's something wrong. People are not able to get the info that you want. And Page of Wands is telling you to kind of take the time to think about it. This is really Charlie Kirk's proposal here. This is for the sake of the survival of Israel. We need to think about this. It's important. We need to have a communication intervention. Booyah. Let's put these back in. I'll keep reading. I started to compose this letter to you on Easter. I should have been focused on my family, but I was getting bombarded with messages about the Israeli army making it difficult for Christians to access church in Jerusalem on Easter. At the time, I did not see any official statements pushing back on this narrative. It was frustrating because pro-Israel surrogates like me should not be, in fact, in charge of fact-checking every piece of anti-Israel misinformation that pours into social media. It wasn't just Easter. On my recent campus tours, half the questions I get are about Israel, and they're all negative. I often spend... all right, fine. I often spend half my time on these campus tours defending Jews in Israel, which I'm proud to do because I love Israel and love the Jewish faith. I spent endless hours with Dennis Prager over the years studying the Torah. Sometimes it feels like I'm defending Israel in public more than your own government. I mean, come on. That's like, why would you say that to Netanyahu, knowing who he is? That's the other thing. It's like Charlie Kirk could have been, this document, as I read through it, it's like a lot of this stuff Netanyahu definitely paid attention to. You spoke in a way that clearly got under his skin. And we're going to get deeper into this document, and you're going to see just how much. Oh, shit. Just how much that happens. My experience on college campuses matches a recent Harvard-Harris poll, which reported 48% of 18 to 24-year-old Americans support Hamas over Israel. Even in young MAGA circles, Israel is losing support. We are getting huge crowds of 4,000 to 5,000 students on some of my college tours. My campus visits are becoming like a rock concert atmosphere filled with conservative patriots. Yet, on these campus visits, I'm constantly confronted with... And, you know what, let's look at these before. All reversals. Reverse King of Cups. Not good. A narcissistic abuser is a reverse King of Cups. They are afraid of what's on the inside. And they're afraid that people are going to possibly see it. And so they resort to all kinds of social manipulation, interpersonal relationship manipulation in order to avoid having to feel like maybe they're not great. Narcissistic abusers are obviously not the full scope of what's going on here. But I say that as a way to help you understand what the King of Cups is. Reverse. King of Cups is not a narcissistic abuser. It's actually someone who's a very good partner, someone who's very caring, very listening, very in tune with their own emotions and what their own boundaries are, but are also very respectful of your boundaries and able to communicate with you whenever there's a difference in opinion. You want to be a King of Cups, but the reverse King of Cups is like the worst thing you can be in a relationship. I have a bachelor's in psychology, and I have a certification in behavioral forensics. Like, so you understand where my background's at. All right, I'm not a PhD, I don't have a master's degree, none of that, but I understand this stuff to a certain degree. And I'm personally not of the school of thought where I like to actually use this type of charged language when even referring to narcissists. But the reverse King of Cups would represent basically the manipulator, the person who is so afraid of the conditions of the relationship or the communication between the two that they resort to brutal manipulation. That is BPD and MPD. With therapy, and people with BPD at the very least are much easier to work with because of the sort of chaotic nature of their condition versus people with MPD, who I would say are actually more stable in their defensive structure of their ego. People with BPD, they're almost as afraid as people with MPD to be criticized. But people with BPD are still very critical of themselves. They hate themselves oftentimes. While people with MPD, the hatred that they have for themselves is so buried under defense mechanisms that a therapist finds it difficult to reach that point. All right. A lot I'm focusing on the reverse King of Cups because I do think this is a very important card to talk about when it comes to dealing with a dictator, dealing with a person who commits a genocide, right? That what kind of human being is Netanyahu? And it's interesting we get reverse devil next to the reverse King of Cups. The reverse devil is not as bad as the devil. And when I say bad, take it with a grain of salt. Every single card you take with a grain of salt. When people say, oh, the tower is the worst card you could get. Well, maybe it's the worst card you could get. Depends on what you're drawing on and depends on you. Reverse Nine of Swords and reverse Knight of Swords. This is sort of like, oh, you are caught in a fucking horrible thought loop type of thing. Like, this is just some fucking dog shit in your brain that you cannot get out of, right? Like, it is just fucking plaguing you. And then reverse Knight of Swords is, and you're fucking moving too fast. You're just jumping into the fucking river. When he said, sometimes it feels like I'm defending Israel in public more than your own government. It's like, Charlie, don't say that to Netanyahu. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing more than you. You do know who you're dealing with? Even if you are a type of person out there, if anyone who has watched enough Netanyahu interviews, familiar with what's going on, policy day by day, how can you see Netanyahu as someone who is like not going to be somewhat upset about that? If you're aware of Mossad and what they do and what they're capable of, then you would be a little bit more cautious, right? You would actually think before saying such a thing. I could see he definitely made some mistakes here. I could stop reading right here, but we got to go into the fucking quotes right here that you can all see already. Charlie, don't let Netanyahu know that this is now in your brain. That this is something that you are struggling with. But how could Charlie have ever thought that this would actually happen? Now, if I was to lean into the conspiracy theory that Israel killed him, I'm not going to necessarily say that is truth, but as I read this a second time, I'm like, it seems very credible, right? Israel is an apartheid state. Why does Israel conduct ethnic cleansing? Why is America subsidizing Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people? Maybe I should just fucking pull a card for each of those, right? Apartheid state. Ethnic cleansing. Ooh, the high priestess for ethnic cleansing. That's... Alright. Oh, fuck. Alright. I think that counts. And one of the cards on my computer. Let's see what this is. Ooh, reverse fool. Okay, yeah, no, this is just more just the vibes here. Charlie Kirk. You had no idea, man. It's like the regular fool is fine. That's like, oh, you're ready to go out and find yourself. It's like, when you turn 18 and you go to college and you start partying and doing drugs and having sex with strangers. That's the fool. Reverse fool, though, is like, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And you're going to get an STI and you only had sex with one person. There's people out there who are fucking thousands of people and they wear a condom every single time. They're totally clean. You fucked one person and you were all like, oh, I'm a fool. And now you have an STI. Congratulations, you fucking idiot. All right, anyways, let's keep pulling. Why is America subsidizing Israel's genocide? Is America aid helping to subsidize Israel's free health care? I mean, these are all these are questions that you should not be asking Netanyahu. Okay? Israel and Jews are running U.S. foreign policy. Israel and Jews are responsible for 9/11. Defending Israel is not in our U.S. national interests. Why is Israel trying to drag us into a war in the Middle East? Well, why is Israel trying to drag us into a war? If I were to read this card, not even like fucking Knight of Swords. I mean, Knight of Swords, which is like dragging people into a war, for sure. Like fucking Knight of Swords, the charge. The knight with the fucking sword charging into war. I mean, it's a perfect fucking thing. But look at his. IBM. What are they known for? It tells you right here, okay? So, reverse King of Cups, Israel is an apartheid state. Oh, shit. Yeah, reverse King of Cups showed up. Which makes sense. An apartheid state would be like a narcissistic abuser. If anyone has a parent that is a narcissist, look at that in the same way that Palestine or any people who are living under an apartheid, that is what the reverse King of Cups is to them. The apartheid state. Why does Israel conduct ethnic cleansing? We got the high priestess for that one. Maybe I can read the Macy conference thing and see if that has anything to do with it. I recommend you guys Googling the Macy conferences and kind of like better understanding what that was about. But it does seem that it's about control. It's a very precise, coordinated effort to achieve something that is about power and controlling the world. So, okay, we'll just move on to the next one. Why is America subsidizing Israel's genocide? Reverse Knight of Wands. And the reverse Knight of Wands would be like an arrogant guy kind of just swings his wand around and using his magic wand to just fucking zap shit without thinking. Why is America subsidizing Israel's genocide? I mean, it's a very complicated thing. I mean, really. Oh, also, look at the Knight of Wands is the Unabomber manifesto. And the Unabomber, I'm not going to get too much into it. I do recommend looking into his stuff as well if you want to know maybe more about what he was concerned with. There is a complex network of corporate greed, Christian fundamentalism, Zionism, and other things probably that have become sort of like uncontrollable. And so there is no individual making the decision. You can see how Donald Trump doesn't want to be Netanyahu's slave. But he is, because unfortunately, there are just way more powerful interests involved, which is like the interests of like probably like thousands of people. And we're not even talking about the lobby that is funded by Israel. It's funded by propaganda think tanks, but it's also funded by everyday people who are victims of this propaganda. So, like, to even try to actually answer that question, it requires quite a long time. Why does Israel conduct ethnic cleansing? I think that is a lot more straightforward. Because it makes sense. I mean, it's what they need to do in order to achieve what they want. But why is America subsidizing it? I do think there's, like, a little bit more complexity. It's not too complex. We at least know, to some degree, why it's happening. It's because our government is bought and paid for by corporations. Hundreds of, like, individual corporations put millions of dollars into campaigns, specifically so that they have control over who they're funding. That's just how it works. Israel takes advantage of that. Now, it doesn't mean that that's all Israel does. They're shady as fuck, for sure. Now, every corporation is shady. They are all doing their own little thing to try to achieve their goals. But they're also doing legal things that are totally allowed, that a lot of people are totally accepting of, including people like Charlie Kirk, who is all about the free market and just letting billionaires pour all the money into whatever candidate they want. You need to, like, first reach that point where you're anti-corporatocracy in order to move on to, okay, what can we do about Israel controlling our government? You don't need to be a leftist, right? Tucker Carlson, I would say, is very far right. Even though he's economically maybe kind of shifting a little bit, I don't think he cares that much about economics as much as he cares about his right-wing conservative interests. But even he recognizes that corporatocracy has ruined America and is ruining the life of everyday working class people. It's an inescapable fact. What we call the woke right now, I guess that's what the Zionists are calling right-wingers who are no longer Zionists. The woke, it's like, yeah, they are starting to wake up to a lot of these realities that leftists have been bitching and moaning about for a century, because it's gotten so bad and obvious. Everyday working Americans voted for Trump because their lives are hard and they need someone to blame, and it's so easy to blame the immigrants who are picking your fruit for $1 an hour. I mean, obviously that's embellishment, but to them that's how it works, and that's why they are poor, that's why healthcare is expensive. They aren't thinking big picture like, oh, corporations just run the economy and basically we are they're slaves. We were told growing up, oh, we vote with our dollar. The reason why corporations don't do bad things is because if they do, then they will be outcompeted by corporations that don't do bad things. As if that's just how it has ever worked. You know, what's funny is like RFK, fuck it, I can't talk about RFK right now. Anyways, the next question, is American aid helping to subsidize Israel's free healthcare? I think I got a reverse star for this because free healthcare is kind of one of those things that is becoming more and more like the woke right is, or whatever you want to call it. These people on the right who are much more aware of like greedy corporate sociopaths like Luigi Mangione. As far as I've seen, I haven't seen anything left wing from him except for the criticism of greedy corporations when it comes to healthcare. I mean, he was a Kaczynski guy, right? He liked Ted Kaczynski, and Ted Kaczynski was somewhat of a racist. I don't know how. I feel like every time I look into that, it seems that Ted Kaczynski wasn't that much of a racist, if at all. He was just misguided on that element. But Luigi and Ted Kaczynski and Tucker Carlson, they are simply not blind. That's all it takes to be able to understand what's going on. Oh yeah, why does Israel get free healthcare? And why do we send them billions of dollars? It sounds like we're funding their healthcare. And I do think there's actually precedent, like there is actual people in Israel who are being funded by taxpayer dollars for healthcare. I don't know if it's like the entire country or if it's like a sect, but point being, they get free healthcare and we don't. And our lives are becoming more and more expensive, and I don't know if this anti-immigrant thing is truly the answer to the economic problems that we have. It just sounds retarded. Israel and the Jews are running U.S. foreign policy, and we got the Five of Swords, which is a conflict card, a conflict between everyone. And interesting we get Google for this, because this is something that, like, Israel and the Jews are running U.S. foreign policy. It's not that simple. It's fucking thousands of hours of research that you would need to do to fucking figure out exactly who is running our U.S. foreign policy. But I like to say something a lot more broad and I would say accurate, which is like, oh yeah, Israel has massive influence, but it's the military-industrial complex that runs U.S. foreign policy. And that includes AIPAC. That includes Israel. We give them money to purchase missiles with. The free healthcare thing is a very small percentage of what that money goes to. It's mostly just bombing, carpet bombing innocent children in Palestine. And it is all a sociopathic game for all these people. They don't give a single fuck about the people. The military-industrial complex can be... I mean, fucking, we got DARPA funding for Google. I think that's what it's suggesting. There's a lot of violent interests, sociopaths. And it's unfortunate that people just say the Jews, right? Like, that's what's very frustrating. It's like, you guys need to do a little deeper research on this stuff. So then we go into reverse Page of Swords. Israel and Jews are responsible for 9/11, which I feel like is very similar, but that's like, well, no, it's not, because it's more conspiracy-minded, because that's something that requires, like, okay, so did the planes cause anything? Like, or do you believe in controlled demolition? Do you believe in thermite? And like, what is it that you believe exactly about 9/11 besides like the official story? And then maybe like some of the stuff where actually maybe the Bush administration knew it was going to happen and allowed it to happen because it gave them an excuse. I sometimes wonder myself, like, how much can we blame nefarious actors in Israel and the CIA, Mossad, things like that? Part of my mind wants to go in that territory these days. I'm much more open to pretty much every conspiracy theory. I think what has given me strength when it comes to analyzing these things is that I still focus on what at least I know for sure, the facts. And reverse Page of Swords does kind of tell me that that's a lot of what it is. It's just reverse Page of Swords is very hearsay. Yeah, you talk. But what info do we have? What information can we use that will definitely pin it on Israel? And, you know, and I hate, once again, the Jews. It's like, well, that's because you're a Turning Point USA and you speak to conservatives. So they all want to blame the Jews. They don't give a fuck about Palestinian children because those are brown. And they don't give a fuck about them. They see them as savage Muslims. So to them, it's like, oh, whatever. The Jews, and like literally that's what Charlie Kirk has cultivated. And he had no choice but to start leaning into it, right? Defending Israel is not in our U.S. national interests, reverse 10 of cups. And that's literally what it says. Defending Israel is not in our U.S. national interests, reverse 10 of cups. It's like, oh yeah, no, it's fucking misalignment for sure. No, everyone in America is not in favor of this anymore. Not everyone, obviously. But more and more, it's growing. And then finally, I already talked about it. Why is Israel trying to drag us into a war in the Middle East? Because of the military-industrial complex. Corporate greed. A lot of people on the right, the reason why they want to blame the Jews is because the real answer is a lot more not in alignment with their ideas. Blaming corporations, blaming the military-industrial complex. You have to remember that this is stuff that they stand by in general. Like, this is stuff that they really want to protect. They have been taught. I grew up with libertarian mindsets. So defending corporations, thinking that, hey, the government is just inherently worse, is kind of like just how from the age of like 16 to like 22, I really did kind of just have this perspective that corporations are not so bad. We can trust because the government is the only powerful entity in the world. I didn't understand economics yet. And that's funny because it's like the whole idea of being on the right, especially a capitalist libertarian type, is, we understand economics. The liberals want to tax the rich and fund healthcare because they don't understand economics. They don't get it. If you tax the rich, then you're going to make the economy turn into fire. If you fund healthcare, that means you're going to be giving money to one corporation, and then all the other competing corporations lose power. That's the argument. So that's why eventually, if you're on the right and you start becoming more and more aware of corporatocracy, you're going to kind of try your best to avoid blaming the corporations. Okay, so that's how I'm going to end it right now. Maybe I'll do a part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. But on my TikTok, I will be doing a reading for Jordan Peterson. I guess after I edit this, it'll be nighttime. Well, we'll see.